Hello and welcome to this. It is the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that takes itself and the game incredibly serious today because we've just finished the second day and the fourth of the quarterfinals.
We have.
I am astonished with what I've just seen.
Which idiots were predicting a Northern Hemisphere whitewash?
Yeah, well, I mean, what has this told us? The four teams that are through are basically the teams that you'd expect, with the exception of Argentina. So the most successful Northern Hemisphere team, the two most successful Southern Hemisphere teams, plus one other.
Yeah, historically, yes. And I bet Argentina, their record of making semis, well, it's certainly better than Ireland. it's better than Wales's, I would imagine, not looking at the facts in front of me, but I would imagine. So yeah, entirely predictable. Entirely predictable by, say, I don't know, Brian Moore, who recorded a generic preview.
Brian Moore was more correct than us. I think we need to give him credit.
More correct than anything, but he could have been more correct than any of us recording this 10 years ago.
Yeah, do you know, to call this World Cup, you literally just needed to go off historic data.
Yes.
That's all you needed to do. You needed to use cliches, go off historic data, and you'd be absolutely fine. I don't even know. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start?
Oh, so...
I know. Let's start here, right? Let's start with this is the EggChasers Rugby Podcast.
Yes.
I'm here with Phil.
Hello.
And we will be joined by Tim, who is in his Metcons interviewing people in France at the moment, isn't he? So he'll be calling in, and you can find us on Patreon, which is, of course, very important. Loads of new sign-ups. Thank you very much. And you can contact us on email, contact@eggchasers@gmail.com. Now we can start.
Fantastic. And where do you want to start? Like we're normally... we're primarily an English rugby podcast because that's where we live.
Yep.
That's where we're from.
Yep.
It's the club game that we watch most. It's the international game that we watch most. I feel like we should not start with England. We should start with either of the British summertime 8 p.m. kickoffs this week, either Saturday or Sunday.
Jesus. I mean, I think Tim will want to talk about which one. Which one would he not want us to start with?
I don't know. He wouldn't want us to start with level 7 rugby, that's for sure.
Right. Let's start with Ireland. Where did you watch it?
I watched this at home.
Did you?
I did. Watched it at home, and I like these 8 p.m. kickoffs.
I do as well. Perfect time.
I like watching them at home. I like watching them at home without my phone, with no distractions, so I can really get into it and not be influenced by Twitter or anything else. This was an unbelievable game.
I cannot remember a single second of this game because I was out on the town from 2 o'clock, my first beer in 10 weeks. I hit my target weight, which was my precursor to go out. That was like my qualification thing. So I had to hit a certain weight. And then I went and drunk myself silly all day.
So you're like a fighter, like a boxer?
Absolutely.
Or a UFC fighter?
Yep.
Got to make weight.
Got to make weight to go boozing. So I made weight, went up boozing. I just remember the heartbreak of the Irish. I just remember watching it and thinking, I cannot believe they've lost that. I simply can't believe it.
New Zealand, let's talk kind of macro before getting into the micro. New Zealand did some amazing things at times. I think Ireland were the better team for most of the game, or certainly had the upper hand for most of the game. And I looking back on this, I think Ireland errors cost Ireland the win. And those errors you could name the Sheehan and Van der Fleer misread on Mo'unga.
That was horrendous.
It's amazing acceleration. But yeah, there's a total misread there between those two.
I mean, to see a team as good as Ireland, because they're amazing, to see them concede a first phase try
from a line out from 50 plus metres out.
It's just unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, and it was 9 to 10, 10 carry.
Yeah.
That was the move.
Yeah, if you were talking to someone who's never seen the game before, they go, oh yeah, that was a really nice move from New Zealand. But actually, that is about as catastrophic as an intercepted pass. And that's the level of error it is.
Yeah, perhaps even more so.
Yeah.
Because intercepts, they do happen when you're kind of pushing the envelope. This was it was a first phase carry by a 10.
Yeah, I don't know how you misread that.
So you've got that error. You've got the Sexton. He only went for 3 points once. Sorry. He went for 3 points twice. and was 50-50, missed one of them.
Yep.
Got one of them. So you got the Sexton, and it was an easy kick that he missed. So you've got that. You've got after the penalty try, where Ireland get line out in the corner again, and it was Kelleher. The Ireland maul is powering over the New Zealand line, and he breaks too early and gets held up by Geordie Barrett, which the goal line dropout from was dropped by Caelan Doris to just relieve. It should have been 7 points to Ireland, and it relieved 50 yards of pressure.
So, like, how many errors, critical errors, made by Leinsterman?
Well, now you've mentioned it, actually, every single one of those that I've just mentioned.
It almost sounds like the welfare policy that they've instituted doesn't work for really high intensity games.
Maybe there is some kind of correlation or causation between Stuart Lancaster and these boys, his influence over these boys, and choking at the highest level.
Oh, it is devastating, though. I mean, they really believe they are the best in the world. And to come down much of a bump is... I mean, when I was watching them, they looked like the best in the world.
They'd lost 1 in 20-odd games going into this. They were the number 1 ranked team in the world. They were the favourites in this game, although not as... According to the bookies, not as great a favourites as you would think. Like, it was almost 50-50 according to the bookies. But if you listened to or read the media, you would probably think it was that Ireland were heavy favourites, or they were, according to the media.
I think they were. I mean, if I was to play this game again, I'd have Ireland winning by a big score. And I think that's probably laid out when you look at how they went up against New Zealand last time they played over 3 games. They absolutely wiped the floor with them in 2 of them. So I think they would win. And they are probably the most impressive team throughout the tournament in the group stage. That manhandling of South Africa was absolutely amazing. And then what they did to Scotland, they just shut them down completely. These guys were the favourites. They were the best team in the tournament. And I'd love to know what I said. Easy enough, because I'm a podcaster and I could look it up. But I'm pretty sure I said, when they were celebrating their Six Nations win, that this is the end for them. Like, they were celebrating that.
You did. You said
that Grand Slam.
You said now that they've won the Grand Slam, that's it. They've lost their opportunity to win the next 2.
Yep.
And by the next 2, you meant Leinster in the Heineken Cup and Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, I felt that.
Now it's quite an easy thing to say, because they at that stage they were one of 20 teams in the Heineken Cup and one of 20 teams in the World Cup. They're slightly in your favour.
Well, there we go.
They're just going to play the best teams in Europe and the best teams in the world and over again.
If you think
for you to be proven wrong.
But maybe, don't celebrate the Grand Slam in a World Cup year
for 3 days.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. Maybe just be a little bit more humble. In the words of Stuart Lancaster, right? Get down, get back to work.
Be more Lancaster.
Yeah, not in a world. Yeah, you can celebrate your Grand Slam in a non-World Cup year. That's fantastic. But you've still got work to do.
Celebrating peaking too early.
Yeah.
A classic. It's like in 2018 when we were in Monaco and Ireland won Team of the Year and Johnny Sexton won Player of the Year, and they peaked too early. And it is... This Ireland team, I'm a huge, huge fan. I wanted them to win this game. I backed them to win this game. And I really, really like the way that they go about their business. In all aspects, they're so well drilled in defence, save for that Will Jordan try. They're so well drilled at set piece, although their line-out got fluffed a bit that we might talk about a bit later. Their attacking play is so good and so consistent. They've got so many likeable players. But with all that said, it is still objectively funny that they go out again in the quarterfinals.
There will be lots of Irish people who are very distraught about this. Very distraught. And you understand why, don't you? Because they think this is their golden generation.
Mm.
But let me reassure you Irish fans out there, there's nothing to worry about. Irish rugby is probably one of the few bright spots in the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
They are very well run. And I remember when they had their last golden generation, it turned out they weren't the golden generation.
You're right.
In fact, it was just the beginning.
The precursor for this generation.
Yeah, and I actually think the next lot of lads coming through will be better again. Because Ireland know what they're doing now. They've got their production line set up. They've got their scouting in order. They just know what they're doing. I don't think this is the end for Ireland. Far from it. I think it's just the beginning.
I think you're probably right. With maybe a couple of caveats, and that's, I think there's 2 generational players in that team who will be hard to replace.
Who are you thinking? Sexton?
Sexton is one.
I think he'll be easy to replace.
But they've been trying for about 10 years.
I think one of the biggest problems that they've had over 10 years is not just replacing him, just replace him. Because as soon as you get someone else to step into those shoes, they'll be fine. Wales have Dan Biggar. And if they get rid of him, they'll have basically some no-name in Costello. And do you know what? He'll be fine. He'll get his experience and he'll be fine. But because they've kept Sexton around for so long, and he's prevented other lads having enough game time to really shine, it's a problem. And not only that, it cost them a fortune to do this. Like it's keeping him for the last 10 years, has cost them a fortune, because not only do you have to pay him as the best paid player, you've also got to pay someone else who's nearly as good as him to play when he's not playing. And you don't get the benefit of playing that player in your national team on a regular basis.
The bit I would say to that is they have tried. They've tried to wean themselves off Johnny, and for various different reasons. Carberry, injuries.
Yep. Paddy Jackson. Stuff.
Other things, not non-injuries, but other reasons. What's his name? Ross Byrne and others, bringing Billy Byrne in.
Yep.
They tried Jack Carty. They've now got Jack Crowley. There's lots of names. So I don't think it's for a lack of trying. And this is more my point, which is he is more of a generational player.
Yeah, I think they've made him into one, though.
One of those comes around every so often. So that's one.
Do you know when you say he's a generational player, though? I'm just going to push back on that. If you look at the Six Nations teams, is he the best fly half in Six Nations?
Probably not at 38. He started Lions tours before, so he was for a good chunk of time. Yeah. 2013, 2017.
And who was the other generational player which you're looking at there?
And now this is because he's so unique. I mean, Henshaw would be the closest thing to him in the Ireland setup, but Ireland don't breed too many players like him. Bundyaki.
Yeah, well, you say...
And he has been...
I mean, Ireland, you could argue, don't breed any like him.
Not too many. He has been absolutely phenomenal recently.
He has been very good.
He's just been outrageous. Like, in the South Africa game, he was amazing.
He was absolutely rocking this game too.
He really was. He's 75 metres made, 7 defenders beaten in this game. And the try that he scored, which was the turning point, or it felt like the turning point for Ireland getting back in the game, because it looked like, I think it was 10-0 at that stage, or maybe 10-3, but it looked like Ireland could easily drift out of it.
Yeah.
And he's difficult to replace.
So, for me, Ireland, New Zealand is a classic, can both teams please lose? Like, how does this happen?
Like when you were watching Semi line up against Faz today.
Yeah, exactly. How can these guys both knock each other out? You know?
Oh, Bristol versus Bath.
Yeah. So, but oh yeah, sorry, that's what I was going to say. So, on the one hand, I just wanted Ireland to go on the quarterfinals because I love the storyline. I love all that. On the other hand, New Zealand did something in the week which made me want to vomit. They dropped a player.
They did.
For discipline reasons.
They didn't say what those discipline reasons were.
I just hate it. I hate it.
But, so, it depends what it is.
I really wanted them to go home then. Oh, look, we're really good so, people who've gone home.
I have no problem with that. It was, what did Fozzie say? It's discipline, it's dealt with. Yeah, I still love him. Don't really like the last remark.
I still love him.
From a coach.
But, do you know, I hate it so much because, presumably, if this is anything like the Aaron Smith discipline, you get disciplined by your own mates. It's like...
Well, so it depends what it is. Because, like, I'll give you an example. And it's maybe one that you could get on board with. A long time ago, played with a scrum half who always cut runs short. He always cut corners on runs. So we're doing defensive drills, like up-down drills, that kind of stuff. He never hit the line and get back into the line. So he's risking conceding a penalty every time. Now, if you're cutting corners in a fitness drill like that, what are you going to be doing in the game?
Gamesmanship, I hope.
So, well, giving penalties away. There's gamesmanship, but there's also giving penalties away. So if it's something like that, like a performance related, like imagine the guy who's double counting his muscle ups,
yeah.
JB.
Okay.
So he's got to do 10, he only does 5 and he marks down 10.
But we've got two different things here, right? So what you're talking about is standards. Like, if you're not training well, you should be dropped, right? If you're giving away penalties, you should be dropped. But if you decide to go out for an extra beer, or you snuck a girl into the hotel room,
but we don't know. It could be.
There must be something like that. It's not like, oh yeah, we dropped him because he was short on shuttle runs.
Might be.
Or Lester Fayanga.
He was like.
Is that how you say his name? Lester
Fayanga Unuku.
Fayanga Unuku. If it's just for discipline, and I remember with Aaron Smith, it's like, I'm sure they got his mates around to punish him, so the coaches can wash their hands of the discipline issue. I mean, imagine if I had to discipline you, Phil.
We've been there in the past, JB.
What's punishment? Nothing. Grow up.
Get me Aaron Smith's paddle.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I
don't like it.
I kind of do get it. Like the one that sticks out is there was a story from, was it 2015, where Australia brought back all their old boys, brought back Gitto and Adam Ashley Cooper and Drew Mitchell for like one last dance, and they got them to a World Cup final.
Yeah, but
there was some discipline around bringing girls back to a room, but it was like their sister or cousin, and it's
it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was, but it broke a heart. This is the story that they did something. It should be illegitimate, but it broke a hard and fast rule, and therefore they were kind of punished because of it.
I have so little time for this.
Yeah, I have very little time for that.
And also, do you know what the All Blacks did this week as well?
Go on.
Baggage train.
Now,
carried their own bags.
I thought you were going to mention that. I wanted New Zealand to lose just because of that.
Sickening.
That is.
And then they're going to parade like.
But it seemed less efficient. Like it seemed dreadful. It was just.
Anyway. So what? I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed that they're thrown out. I wish Ireland had one. So let's talk about the actual game itself. What are the turning points for you here? What were the things which really stood out that New Zealand did? Because for all of Ireland's choking, New Zealand played bloody well.
They did. They took their chances brilliantly. We've already spoke about the Will Jordan try. They took their first two tries, the Lester Fayanga Unuku and the Ardy Surveyor one in opposite corners, fantastically. And something they exploited, which was clear to me that it was a pre-planned thing, where they've seen a glimmer of space in the Ireland defensive line, was the little chips over the top.
Yeah.
And the Bowden Barrett one that was for the Fayanga Unuku try, I think, was just beautiful,
wasn't it?
It's stunning. And then so that was an amazing passage of play, because it was the Bowden Barrett chip, and Bowden Barrett gets nailed by James Lowe.
Yeah,
absolutely,
it really does.
Absolutely nailed. But still has the wherewithal to look for the offload, doesn't quite get it, and then they go wide, and it's the little 1-2 between
stunning
Fayanga Unuku and Rieko Ioane. That was incredible. So, phenomenal start for New Zealand. They get that. They got the penalty, then they get that, and then try to remember the conversion. Perhaps even another penalty. So was it 13-0 up they were?
13-3 was...
Yeah.
13-0, 13-3.
Yes. That's how it went. 13-0, 13-3. Then you get the Bundy Aki try, which was, you felt like, if Ireland don't score that, if Bundy doesn't cut back inside and beat however many players and score that, you felt like the game was going to start drifting away from them.
Mm.
But they never let it drift away from them. Every time New Zealand scored a try, they'd get back into it somehow, one way or another. They'd get back into it.
Well, they just stayed in the fight.
Yes. Couple of areas of interest. I'd like to get your take. Although, given that it was kind of 7 hours after you started drinking, may be difficult. Line out and scrum in particular. Line out, Ireland fluffed a couple in important positions, but also made a few in important positions, particularly in the second half. They got a few fantastic line-outs, one of which led to the try, one of which led to the Kelleher kind of early break and the Jody Barrett amazing hold-up. Scrum time, though. Ireland's scrum, it was really interesting to me because it looked to me like Ireland were dominant at scrum time when they turned the screw.
Yes.
However, they got penalised on a number of occasions. Andrew Port was penalised on a number of occasions for either stepping out or boring in or both.
Going around the side was...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that is necessarily what happened. I'd have to look at it again on like a spider cam.
Yeah.
That would be a better way to do it. I like the sort of French way of officiating a scrum, which is just the dominant team wins. Like if you want to step around the side, well, you got to do something about it as the opposition prop. You can't bore in too much, but if you do bore in, there becomes other opportunities. When a scrum is dominant, I very rarely like them to be penalised. Remembering those scrums now, Porter did get pinged 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, he got pinged, and it was actually...
I didn't like them. I didn't think that they were legitimate penalties.
And it was where Ireland were really dominant. There's 1 or 2 where De Groot and Cody Taylor were what do they call it, flying saucered, where they were like on top.
Yeah. The question then becomes, right, if you are dominant and you're going forward, are you dominant because you're cheating? Probably not. So why would you cheat?
Yeah.
Why would you do this? That's why I'm a little bit suspicious.
But I thought Ireland could learn a bit from the South Africa scrum in that regard. Obviously, everyone can learn a bit from the South Africa scrum, although England employed...
Again, like the South Africa scrum, just go back to that. When they won a penalty against France, and again, it was for walking around the side, I didn't think that was like... France really went at them. And I thought France, at that point, that was a turning point of the game, because to me, France looked like a scrum which could hold their own. But that penalty then ruins them. So again, I'd have to see it again.
But what I was going to say was, South Africa, from watching them in this tournament particularly... I think this happened in this game, it happened in the Scotland-South Africa game and the Ireland-South Africa game. They bide their time for the scrum penalties. They're happy to show the ref a nice picture for several scrums early in the game. Just hold it up, not create a lottery, just keep it nice and steady, no pushing, nothing, no dominance, and then they turn it on. Yeah. And Ireland, I think, tried to do too much too soon. And I am not a scrummager at all, but Port on New Zealand's ball, the Ireland went for them several times, like over and over and over again, and got penalty. Yeah. What they should have done after the first penalty, to me, with a bit of game theory, is, right, we're just going to show a really nice picture the next few times. Yeah. Show it's not us causing, disrupting it, show it's not us being illegal, and then when Waynesbarn believes us that we are legit... Then we go for it. Yeah. So I think that was a schoolboy error.
And the thing is, you don't actually know what's going on there unless you know. So if you were going to go all 8 against them, you'd need to know what the decision is. And conversely, if you just feel you're going forward, well, you don't stop.
Yeah.
So you need to actually ask them what they were doing.
But the scrums in particular for Ireland were a weak point. Lineouts, a couple of fluff lines, but I think generally pretty good.
Yeah. So New Zealand are back. That's quite disappointing.
They are
one of their worst teams probably in the last 2 decades. But it's not that bad, is it? I mean, they're quite good.
It's still a phenomenal team. The bit that they miss, and this is, I guess it's making the same point again, that Ireland did not capitalise on this. I think that New Zealand's weakness, and I said it last week, is their front row.
Agreed.
It's their front row, and it's not their front row around the park necessarily. I mean, Cody Taylor's brilliant around the park, and Dane Coles or Takiahu, who is the third choice, are brilliant around the park, but they are not brilliant at scrum time.
They're not brilliant at scrum time, and I tell you the other thing as well. They play differently. They don't have monstrous ball carriers. They could do with one really big ball carrier in there. I mean, they've got nice ball carriers. People can move their feet. Audie Surveyor's not bad.
He's a phenomenal ball carrier, but he's not a heavy traffic carrier.
No, he's more like a Ben Earl, isn't he? He's that kind of thing.
Ben Earl or a Ludlam type player.
Yeah, so they could do with just one absolute mutant. I mean, Retallick's very nice.
Shannon Frizzell, but he had a very quiet game.
Yeah.
Shannon Frizzell's the one, I think, who can bring that heavy traffic. He didn't do much. I have to say, though, I thought Sam Cane had a good game.
Sam Cane did have a good game, one of his better games, I would say. And I think he's phenomenally disappointing every time I watch him.
He had a great game. His hit for the early
turnover
penalty, he hit Caelan Doris, and
That's it.
was a one-on-one tackle with Caelan Doris in the middle of the park, and he nailed him. And Ardy Surveyor went over the top, jackaled over the top, and
Hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I feel sick.
Oh no! Been drinking again?
No, not ill. No, just from watching that game. Oh my God! Sorry, I know I'm jumping in. You've already talked about it loads. So
no, we haven't. No, we're waiting for
haven't?
you. We're waiting for you, mate. We're just polishing off the Ireland All Blacks game whilst we're waiting for you because we assumed you'd want to talk about it.
Oh well, no, I'm happy to jump in whenever. It's absolutely fine. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Is it right? So just one question quickly: is that the greatest weekend of rugby we've ever there has ever been?
I think the
Surely.
two 8 p.m. kickoffs are two of the best games I've ever seen.
The England game was very good.
The England games and the other two games were nowhere near as high quality, but you did not know until the last few minutes in any of the game. They were all up for grabs until, I mean, it was only the Nicolas Sanchez try in the Argentina game, and the England game, it was the last second, 82 minutes. So
yeah, and so I can understand the temptation to moan about the draw if you're from Ireland or you're from France. I totally understand the temptation, but you cannot have both things. You cannot have the top 4 teams in the world meeting at the semi-finals and have the weekend that we've just experienced. That was one for the ages. So,
and if you're going to win the World Cup, which is the ultimate goal here, you got to beat all these teams. So grow up and beat them. I just don't understand this nonsense about the draw. Yes, it's irritating, I guess, that England have gone so far. But you've got to beat these teams. You've got to beat them.
Well, England are objectively better than Ireland.
Yeah.
And much, much better than Scotland. And better than France. So there you go.
Wow. Yeah. So we've just done Ireland, New Zealand. I think we all agree Ireland are massive bottlers and New Zealand aren't as bad as we thought.
This is why I was sat in the waiting room going, I need to get in there before JB goes and just slags off Ireland. Not having it.
We have been very complimentary to Ireland, although we did note that it is, even though Ireland are an incredible team, it is still objectively funny that they have gone out in the quarters again.
Yeah. I hope Paris fans are looking forward to the Lancaster era.
Well, they've never had a history of being amazing anyway, so
that's true. But at least they'll be great people.
Or maybe they've had a history of bottling it.
Yeah, maybe this might be perfect. This might be perfect for them.
Bottle squared.
This will be harder this will be the hardest one to take by a mile.
Yes,
because of arriving at the World Cup as the number 1 team, playing so well. Yeah, this will be. But I'm sure you have talked about the New Zealanders. But I'm sure you mentioned there's been some redemption arcs. Sam Cane's the redemption arc that Sam Cane is on is amazing, and there's quite a lot of.
Seems to have cut out. Quite a lot of what? What do you think he was going to say there?
Camembert?
People. Can I be guilty of kind of just casually writing, not writing Sam Cane?
Cutting it in and out. Tim.
Oh, sorry. Hello? Oh, sorry.
You basically singing the praises of Sam Cane.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But I was saying his redemption arc's amazing, and there's a few players like that.
I thought Geordie Barrett looked like a world-class operator.
Yes. But there's a few players at the World Cup that look like they're on redemption arcs.
Ooh. Who else have you got in mind?
Because, well, we can talk about this game later. That's fine. But I was quite upset. No, not upset. That's the wrong word. I was irritated. I was irked by Owen Farrell being booed when his name got announced when the teams were running through the team sheet. I know you'll love it, JB.
I wonder why that happened. I mean, look, I paid a lot of money for that.
But he got heavily booed and then put in a excellent performance.
He was okay. He's all right.
He played very well, mate. He played very well. And Sam Cane, I remember looking at it. It was just the look on his face when he walked out the tunnel. I was like, oh, hello.
This is interesting, isn't it? There are quite a few national captains that just are not very well liked. It's Senegal national captains. So, this is going to this will probably get me cancelled. I'm not a massive Khaleesi fan. I don't think he's that good. Certainly don't think he's the best 7 in South Africa.
I could watch him sing the national anthem all day.
Yeah, but the captain is something very sort of, I don't know what it is. He says something about that team, doesn't he? And sometimes they're picked when they're not necessarily the best player. And I don't know what it is. That's why Owen Farrell irks me so much. Sam Cane irks me. Khaleesi, not as much as those two, in fairness. Who's the Ireland captain? Sexton. Yeah, not a fan. Scotland?
Jamie Ritchie.
I love him. I think he's amazing.
Wales, Jack Morgan,
amazing. Yeah, I don't know why. The players that are picked as captain because they're just the best, hardest guy that they've got, I love. But the guy who's picked as captain because he's like the company man, I just can't really like him.
Argentina, Matera.
Perfect.
Although he missing the weekend. Tim, you're more on the ground. Do you know if Matera will be fit for next week?
No, he's been replaced.
Is he? He's definitely out.
Oh, he's out.
Definitely out. He's out. He's out. Yeah,
Gutted.
not in a Mickey Flanagan way.
Gutted.
Oh no, that is awful.
Yeah. But Kremer was massive for Argentina. Anyway, we should talk about the game we've just watched because it was one of the greatest games of rugby of all time.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, if Ireland versus New Zealand was two teams that I would wish could both lose, this is two teams I wish I could both win.
Oh dear!
What did we just experience?
That was a phenomenal game.
Well, that's the right word. That wasn't a rugby, that was an experience.
That first.
Can you
half...
imagine how it feels to be French or South African right now? Imagine you were French or South African and you were doing this podcast. I think I'd just be emotionally spent. I can't do it.
Yeah, the adrenaline would be off the charts following that game. The stress levels as well.
Yeah. It was incredible. I mean, okay, so the first half is the single best half of rugby. I don't know, actually, because Ireland South Africa was good.
South Africa was amazing.
And Ireland France was good.
Ireland France this year was amazing. Both halves of that Ireland New Zealand game. The first half of this was unreal.
No, the first half of this was the best. It was 6 tries.
Yeah, 3 tries each. Starting in the 4th minute.
I mean, they were different. 3 tries each is great. I think you'd have to really listen back to what we said about Ireland versus South Africa, because the start of that game with very few tries, but 1 try each all game, wasn't it? Something like that?
Yeah,
it was hardly anything.
Really low scoring.
So that was superior to this game in terms of just the sheer defensive physicality which was on display, particularly first half. I've never seen anything like that. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again. This was different because it was attacking masterclass. And I said to Phil, as soon as Phil came in to watch the second half of me, I was like, this is the most intelligent rugby I've ever seen.
There was some weird things. Like, as an example that everyone spotted, the mark by, was it Willemse?
Yeah.
Damien Willemse marks it and calls a scrum, which I have never, ever seen before.
Has he got the authority to do that? I mean, I know he has by the letter of the law, but imagine usually that's a captain's decision.
Well, whoever it might have been, but that was, I'm just imagining Razzie Erasmus with his light. He's got a light for scrum off a mark. That was a pre-planned call. So that's one that everyone spotted. One that probably everyone did spot, but the Diolande try. Did you see how South Africa lined up for the Diolande try? So there was a ruck. It's open play, ruck on the left hand side of the field. South Africa attacking, and basically the whole of the South Africa players who were on their feet, not involved in the ruck, just all stood on the right hand side touchline. So you had Libok as 10 behind the ruck, and then you had a 30-yard gap. There was no one.
Really?
There was no one for him to pass to. So there was about 7 or 8 players under a crossfield bomb.
Wow.
Yeah, including Etzebeth, who competed for the first one, which led for the Arendt to try, and then when they did the kick from right to left, Peter Steph Toy was under it,
Yes,
and competed enough before Dialende went and scored. It was like, and that I think that might be there's two stories of this game. I think it's the ability of South Africa to absorb French pressure in the first parts of each half,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was tactical genius of South Africa, because I don't know what they saw in the French. I wouldn't even know where to start about what they spotted with the French team or what plan they came up with to do exactly what you just described, Phil. But it was clearly by design, and it led to 2 tries. And also in that first half, 3 attacks, 3 tries, and the rest of the time they were defending.
I think
Incredible.
what's his name?
Nienaber.
Jacques Nienaber.
It must be one incredibly intelligent guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he does operate on a different level. We spoke about the high tackle stuff, didn't we, against Ireland?
Yeah.
Like, they don't commit high tackles.
Yeah.
They just don't do that.
There was obviously the Etzebeth yellow card, which was just he got his body in the wrong position.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really don't. They're for such big blokes who hit so hard, their biometrics, body angles, whatever you want to call it, their positioning is so good to not risk it.
I mean, for a lot of people and a lot of organisations and countries, when you have like a super strength, you tend to neglect everything else.
Yeah. Sometimes your strengths overplayed can become your weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Saudi Arabia doesn't have a thriving tourist economy, for instance, right?
Although, if MBS gets his way...
Yes, quite. So, like, South Africa being so massive, you think, oh, well, they'll just go and do that. But they work so hard on other things, like their tactical ability. And we spoke last week in the lead-up to how does someone beat Ireland, and it's going to be with some unconventional tactics. They have bought into finding space through kicks more than anyone. And other teams have played with this. I mean, a lot of teams have looked at it in the past. I don't know if you remember, I picked Dom Barrow for fantasy rugby because Leicester were playing with this. They were trying to put second rows on the wing in order to catch balls, and it just didn't work. But maybe they just didn't buy into it enough.
Or maybe they didn't have the level of thinking behind it that South Africa do.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense it would work, but we're just not bright enough to put it all together yet. That was Aaron Major, actually, who came up with that.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't get enough of a crack at the whip at Leicester?
No, and I guess there were competing things with Aaron Major and Richard Cockrell? Yeah, Cockers wanting to do fairly different things.
Who got fired so Matt O'Connor could come back? Was that Major, or was he after?
Yes, so Cocker gets fired first. 2 weeks later, Major goes.
Yeah,
and then O'Connor
comes in,
and then he goes.
God, what a mess!
What a mess!
Anyway, we're not here to talk about the history of Leicester Tigers DORs.
No. Well, they got the right one eventually.
I'm just gonna let me credit the DORs a bit more, and this is something you've talked about plenty in the past, JB, about the people that are on the pitch at the end of a match being important, and sometimes that like, you know, people get hung up on who's starting a game versus who should be on the bench, as if it's first choice and second choice starting bench. And as soon as I saw there was 2 things. It was when I saw the South Africa team announced with those at least four World Cup winners sat on the bench, and then especially, I think one of my thoughts after the Wales game when they brought off Argentina had like 300 caps worth of players on the bench to bring on when Wales had kids to replace Dan Biggar and Liam Williams. It was at that point I went,
makes a difference, doesn't it?
Finals. Maybe this is why Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus have got 4 World Cup winners on the bench, and so it proved.
Yeah, and there was so that is a really interesting point, Tim. So the South Africa bench, obviously, Rassie and Nienaber have experimented with a 6-2 split, a 7-1 split, even the historic 8-0 split.
Love it.
But to have 3 backs on the bench, and it's 3 incredibly experienced, like basically relinquishing pace for experience. So Faf, Pollard, and Willie LaRue, who of all in those backline positions, whereas you would often be seeking, I don't know, someone maybe like Rio Dyer coming off the bench as an example, or a Damien McKenzie type.
I really wish.
Absolutely.
So, Tim, tell me this. You're a media man. You're on the inside. Like, Jack near him, right?
Nienaber.
Nienaber.
was interviewed before the game. I said, how are you going to defeat this French defence? And he said something like, "Oh, we'll have to execute well and not make mistakes." So what a waste of my time. What a waste of his time. What a waste of the interviewer's time. What a waste, right? Now, he's going to play a game, and he's on there in like 10 minutes. There should be some mandated thing, right, where you have to actually speak, because I want to know the theory behind having 4 players. What does he expect Faf de Klerk to do when he comes on? Why can't he say, we want to out-physical them to start with? Why can't he say, no one's going to hear it except for the audience. Why can't he just say these things and give us a clear indication of what he wants to do? No one's going to change their team.
Did you see? So I tend to agree, but it's often, certainly in press conferences. I always watch the press conferences before and after. There's so many dull questions about how does this make you feel, about what does it mean to you, and it's like, well, come on, ask about tactics or positioning or strategy or the bench and the lineup and that kind of stuff. I can't remember what I was going to say then.
That'll do.
Yeah.
It should be treated
what I was going to say was, did you see Razzi's tweet this week?
No.
Which was...
No.
So he tweeted something along the lines of 5 plus 3, 6 plus 2,
Oh, yeah.
7 plus 1, 8 plus 0, and then 4 plus 4 question mark, and like I think it maybe had that the thinking emoji. It's like,
and then tagged Matt Williams.
Yeah, very. I mean, if they'd have gone 4 plus 4, because on some of those things, like that crossfield kick where basically they took away the option for Liebach to pass pretty much and just put the option for the crossfield kick, but like had 7 players out there. That's the kind of thing where, because that worked, it looks like absolute tactical genius. Because that led to the Dialande, it led directly to the Dialande try. It looks like absolute tactical genius. If that, if the ball bounces slightly differently, it ends up in French hands and they score a 50-metre try.
Not so much.
You look like it. So it's a bit of the rub of the green leads to us perhaps occasionally overthinking intellect.
Except for they did it 3 times.
They did that several times. Yeah,
and even when they were clearing their lines, they were still kicking short and contestable. And the contested kick is a wonderful thing.
They also did, like we mentioned before, with the scrumming the mark, which is high. I think a bit of it from the South Africa team is just change the picture, like force the opposition to think about things that they've never thought about before. Because those 2 things really do change the picture. Well, I've never seen a scrum from a mark before, and
I've never seen a charge down conversion.
I've never seen a charge down. Not
Oh my god! I was just going to mention that when you think of the tiny moments, Marnie Libbok's conversion from the touchline,
yes,
on the first try,
yeah,
when all the talk about his goal kicking,
yeah,
Cheslin Colby charge down. You're so right. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Although Cheslin Colby's drop goal attempt.
Yeah,
but also that, like, isn't that interesting? So Marnie Libbok was the one that nailed a touchline conversion. Andre Pollard comes on, and the first thing they do is go for the corner and then convert.
Yeah,
with that Etzebeth carry.
That Etzebeth carry was monstrous, absolutely monstrous.
He had a game for the ages. He was incredible.
Yeah.
Why was this game? I mean, I think there's a worthwhile question to ask. Why was this game, the Ireland game and the Ireland South Africa game, what was it about them that made them so amazing? And if we can put our finger on that, we should then market rugby in that way and no other way.
So I think there's multiple things. So I think one is absolutely 100% the physicality.
I agree.
100%.
You have to sell the physicality. First and foremost, that's got. It's not about bad carrying. It's not about it. It's about physicality. Because it's that physicality which allows you to really admire. I mean, I think New Zealand scored one try. It was just a basic 3-on-2. I was like just admiring the brilliance of the skills because of the pressure. His skills aren't that brilliant.
Well, yeah.
But they are under pressure.
And then that's exactly the second point I was going to make, is the consistency of the skills at the highest level of pressure.
Yeah.
And a great example, sadly it was all in vain, but the 37 or 38 phases that Ireland played at the end of that game.
Yeah.
And I made the comparison when we were watching the France game, JB, when France were basically in the same position as... Well, actually, they're in a better position than Ireland were, because they just needed 3 points. Well, they just needed 2 points, but they needed a penalty or a drop goal. So they didn't have as much to do from Ireland, and they just looked spent. The shape in their attack went out, like, was all over the place.
Yeah.
Guys in ones and twos, guys too
Sideways
flat, guys too
running.
deep. Even Dupont looked out on his feet.
It turns into schoolboy rugby. Literally schoolboy rugby.
Whereas Ireland, for those 37, 38 phases, they were so well drilled, they were so well organised, they were carrying so well, such a high standard. The last time I'd seen that kind of cohesion and consistency at that stage of the game was Ireland versus New Zealand in 2016, I want to say, before Ireland beat New Zealand for the first time. And it was the other way round. It was where Ireland were in the lead, New Zealand needed to go 80 metres with ball in hand to score a converted try, and they did. And it was at that level that Ireland were performing. And that is phenomenal.
So 38 phases is a weird place to find yourself.
It certainly is.
Now, this can go one of two ways, 38 phases. You can have... So the best team ever, in my opinion, to play phase rugby like that was Exeter.
But Exeter was different. Exeter would get 30, 40 phases, but they were pick and goes. This was playing 1 and 2 outs, 30 plus phases.
So I actually think those sort of, like, to be 38 phases deep in a game probably means your attack is not firing. You've had 38 chances to do something. So you have to be practicing to that level consistently. If you're that high in your phase count, but you've got nowhere to go.
They had no choice.
Got nowhere to go.
Ordinarily, they would have put boot to ball.
Yeah.
But they can't. They have to retain it. It was the only time in that game, it was the only time indeed in the tournament that Ireland got to that level of phases, because they were about to get knocked out.
So Saracens... Was it Saracens? Was it you who told me this, Tim? Either Saracens or Exeter in their prime used to look at hitting 7 phases because they believe after 7 phases,
that was Sarries. I think it was 6.
Was it 6?
Or 7,
and it might have been against Exeter of all teams. Like, you get 6 phases and then defences will break down. By the time we got to 38, that psychologically must be really difficult.
But they were so Ireland don't ordinarily do that. It's totally a function of the situation that they were in. But they were still making. They'd made about 50 yards in those 38 phases, and it was. But you could see. I actually think defending in that position is easier than attacking.
100%.
It's so much harder to attack because you have to. You're the one who's doing more yards backwards and forwards and more aggressive running, but you've got to commit like 2-3 players to every ruck. Whereas defending, you don't actually have to commit to any rucks if you don't want to.
Right, Tim, you can go report back to BT Sport with my new idea.
TNT Sports.
Sorry, TNT Sports. My new idea is this. Not just a phase counter, but there must be some metric to see when the phases are starting to slow down. So if you are going your first 10 phases, probably ruck speed, right? Mm-hmm. If the ruck speed continues to be on average every 5 phases, 2 seconds, the ruck counter is green, and as it gets slower, it changes colour to red. so the viewer can understand if the ball's more likely to get kicked or if they're more likely to turn it over.
But you could graph that with a trend line as well to show the direction of the. Are they trending up? Are they getting faster?
Yes, I love it.
So if it stays the same, you're amber. If they're getting faster, it's green, and the graph goes up, the trend line goes up. If you're getting slower, which undoubtedly towards phases 38, that it was getting slower.
That's a great idea.
The problem is if everything's because I think Ireland would much rather they have really fast ruck speed normally because they don't want that many rucks. They want to keep moving the opposition around to create space.
Yeah.
So you might not get that many opportunities unless you're watching Exeter in their prime.
Sort it out, Tim. You've got some. You've got some juice.
Well, you're making a big assumption that I've got anything to do with it, mate.
You got some
I'm
juice
on the outside now. I'm with you. I'm with you on the outside.
Yes, the insurgents.
No, it's what was I going to say? Talking to just the speed of stuff. I think the best description that was that it was like watching rugby double speed versus the game we saw earlier.
I love that. Yeah,
South Africa.
Yeah, true. Now, shall we
And
talk?
the skill set of both teams is just outrageous.
Oh,
Physicality, skill set, the whole lot.
Everything.
If this is rugby, or I mean, the people I feel sorry for the people that didn't watch this game, because everyone should have watched this. It should have been a big national event. This it should be. It's just incredible. It's incredible. There's such a spectacular thing going on, and people are not talking about it left, right, and centre.
But hey, here's a fact for you. Of the 4 semi-finalists, England, the only one that topped their pool, the only unbeaten side left in the competition, so it must be favourites, right?
I think so. Anything can happen now.
Yeah. Should we go on to talk about that England game then?
Yeah.
Poor Marcus Smith.
He will never be the same.
We really won't.
What was the description of his? He has a face that like a Picasso painting at the end of the game. That was great.
He's such a handsome. He could be in a boy. He could have been in a boy band prior to this game. Such a handsome, boyish, good looks, and then Owen Farrell moved into fullback.
Roll out like. Can you imagine Quagga Smith with Marcus Smith's hair? It doesn't go together. Marcus, you have to change his barnet as well now.
So we always talk about, well, idiots do anyway, about we must appeal to mothers. Mothers will not let that. Well, I'm telling you, if you've got a good-looking son now and you were considering rugby for him, you're not doing it anymore, are you?
And all that is because Faz doesn't like Marcus Smith.
Yeah.
He doesn't like.
And there'll be people on the internet crying, it's about skills, it's disgusting.
JB, why don't you talk to us about Owen Farrell? Just tell us what you thought of Owen Farrell today.
To be honest, I didn't really notice him too much. I don't think this is really... it's a bit difficult for me to watch England because I'm so heavily supporting the opposition team.
Apart from Semi Radradra.
Yeah, apart from... he played really well.
He played really well.
Really well. He played like a number 8 who was let loose on the wing. He played superbly. England were very disciplined. I'll give them that. They were very disciplined. I don't think they were spectacular. I think
that's the best. It did cross my mind, Phil. That might be the best 40 minutes since 2019.
You might not be wrong.
Really.
I'm sure England. They started off,
but there must maybe 2020 and 2021. There may have been good games. I can't remember.
Yeah, I seem to remember they started the World Cup cycle better than they finished it.
Okay,
but certainly in Steve Borthwick and and the last year or so of Eddie Jones's tenure, so a good 2.5 years, the best England have played that first 40 minutes.
Yeah, and they played a bit different to how they did for a lot of the tournament, and they played different to how they did in the second half. There was a lot more. It felt like, to me, not seeing the stats on this, but it felt like there was a lot more box kicking in the second half, which ultimately ended up just giving the ball back to Fiji, and then invited pressure on themselves and Marcus Smith's face.
Yeah, I thought they played really well, and for 40 minutes, and they're going to need to.
Sorry, which 40 minutes are we referring to?
The first half, England played really well.
Okay,
yeah.
Did you not think
the 2 tries?
I mean, they didn't blow me away.
2 tries, 3 penalties.
But hold on, like it's relative. Yeah, it's like if we're comparing it to Ireland, New Zealand, France, South Africa. Yes, it was so. But if you're comparing it to every other England performance under Steve Borthwick, except for the odd 10-minute flash when they're 2 men down and desperately need to try and score, that was the best England have played. And they took. I mean, I had similar feelings, and we'll come on to the Welsh game in a bit. I thought at 10-0 down when Dan Biggar was lining up that kick, Wales have got this in the bag. And I was thinking as England were 21-10, it's like, oh, this is done.
Yeah, I did. I completely agree.
They were so in control.
They were
playing
in control.
real mature game. They were playing with more width and ambition than I've seen England play. They were varying the kicking game really well. The forwards were on top.
Yeah.
Owen Farrell was dictating the tempo, and it just looked like a balanced back line. It just looked like a good international rugby team.
Yeah, I mean, they were disciplined. That was good. I do agree with the kicking strategy. Was it exactly what you'd expect, isn't it? It's a territorial-based game. This is what we knew was going to happen. I like that.
But it was different from what they've done, because for a lot of the tournament they've kicked far more off 9 than they did in the first half.
Yeah.
And I think in the second half they kicked far more off 9. It felt like certainly they kicked far more off 9 in the second half.
Yeah, Alex Mitchell's kicking has not been superb and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I think
he hasn't got the excuse of no platform like last week, because actually the forwards did a decent job there. The Marcus Smith thing, one of the things I really noticed, and you see this with New Zealand did it brilliantly well last night, and you saw it with South Africa a lot as well. When you have that playmaker at fullback, the flashing back on the blind side suddenly becomes a real weapon, and England used the blind side brilliantly, I thought, particularly well in that first half. They really got some change out of that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, the brightest spots for me was that England looked like they had some real leaders out there. I thought Chesham was excellent. I thought Laws, he got bundled out very unceremoniously, but he's easily England's most effective tackler now.
Yeah,
which
is weird for someone who's so tall.
Yeah, and I thought Ben Earl.
Ben Earl was great.
What we said about Ben Earl before the tournament was that he is one of those guys so special. You just got to make room for him in the team, and they have done. And I think that is paying huge dividends now, because to me he looks like the only world class player on the field. He reminds me. I know we've already made this comparison once today, but I'm going to make it again because I really want to drive it home. It's like when Ardie Surveyor was coming through. And people were like, well, what do we do with him? Is he a 7? Is he a 6? But he has to play. Then eventually he nailed down the 8 jersey, and now he's probably the first name on the team sheet. I see Ben Earl doing something very, very similar for England, because no one else is as athletic as him. No one else can run half the pitch from a half break. He turns things over. He hits things. He's bloody amazing. He's absolutely amazing. And it's to the point now that I was watching the game, I thought Tom Curry was the worst back row on the field.
He probably
he was actually poor.
He probably was the worst back row on the field. I think that's perhaps accurate.
Yeah,
it could be injury. Could be as in he's not played a lot of rugby because of injury and suspension, so he's still finding his way back into it. But it could be trying too hard. But he
trying
wasn't
too hard
great.
is definitely one of those things which is happening, because he spends most of his time trying to fight ineffectively, because I think that's just what he thinks he should do. But his breakdown work is poor. So he's not attacking the ball with both hands. He's attacking it usually with one hand, and he's lucky not to get pinged off the field. I mean, he's really fortunate. I thought some of the stuff he did around the breakdown was stupid rather than anything else. It was careless. But again, he's just trying to get as many turnovers. It does. I will make the counter argument, which it did work. He didn't get pinged, and it did slow down ball. And actually, that might be one of the reasons that Fiji struggled so much, because they looked very naive in open play, which you don't usually see, but they did in big chunks of the game. They were trying to run the ball at England, and they were getting turned over because they were naive at the breakdown.
Tim, can I just ask you, because in my mind the flip from first half to second half was a bit of a change in strategy, a bit more conservative from England, a bit more box kicking. Is there anything else you think? Because it wasn't really. I don't think you can attribute it to the personnel changes that happened just kind of through the game. What?
Well, I was trying to make sense of this myself, because I don't honestly know. My sense was that they tightened up how they played a little bit, and I think they had a 11-point lead at half time, so you can kind of understand that. But I think that might be a lesson. And actually, that look at South Africa and France, that some of the rugby they played when it was a 1-point game was just rugby from the gods, and just trying offloads and doing things. And I think fortune does favour the brave. And actually, if England should take confidence from the first 40 and just go, no, let's put it away when it's there.
Yeah,
just take it to them. And I think that's the way that the best sides do it. But it did feel like it coincided a bit with the changes. I think that it's sort of conversely to South Africa, who just Quagga Smith was just an absolute beast when he came on. I didn't really feel like anyone off the England bench made an impact.
Well, if they did, it's not in the way you were hoping.
Yeah. So Carl Sinclair, for example, I don't know. I'd have to go back and check. But it felt like the scrum suddenly was under pressure when Carl Sinclair came on.
Well, I mean, I think you're dead right there, Tim. And I think one of the most disappointing things about English rugby at the moment is the recall of Dan Cole. That should tell you everything you need. Now, that's not a knock on Dan Cole.
Yeah, of course.
Far from it. That's just saying, like, if you've got to go back to a guy who's, let's be honest, we all thought his international career was dusted.
Done in the last World Cup final.
Yeah.
We thought that was it.
Yeah, and he's still here 4 years later. I mean, this is a real problem for England because he's the best option. So you're absolutely right. The fact that he's even there is an indictment on the ability of Sinclair and Stewart and everyone else, really.
And Joe Hayes.
Yeah.
Many, many others.
So it makes sense that he go backwards. Maro did some good things.
I thought Maro had a mixed game.
Yeah.
I thought he did some good things and some bad things. I thought his strip and break was amazing. When Laws got bundled out into touch 2 phases earlier, he got absolutely nailed.
Yeah,
by 2 of the Fijian forwards.
And that
love
smash,
watching.
like it was that one, and then Courtney Laws. It was Maro got smashed, and then Laws got smashed. Yeah, that's what you just said, Phil. Sorry if I repeated it.
We don't. I mean, because the Fijians are so good at certain aspects of the game, offloading, attacking. People tend to overlook that some of their defence is awesome.
That was
actually oddly, like I was a little not disappointed with Fiji. That's wrong. I think actually England contained them really, really well. But they played one-out rugby most of the time.
Yeah, they do. They're quite disciplined. They're not necessarily what you think.
And sometimes when they tried to just pass it down the line, there was a lot of real poor passes. Like the offloads are obviously incredible when they can get them going, but it was quite a simplistic game they played, just crashing it up. But the actual contact area, they were just so physical.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's absolutely great to watch.
Yeah.
Luke Tangi is so
he had to go off. Yeah, it was a shame when he went off far earlier than they would have wanted.
Yeah. Who else did I like? I don't need to speak about Bottia. Although, again, Bottia, in some respects, was contained. He wasn't as effective as he normally is.
Mixed bag. There was times where and I think this is right for the ref to be hot on it, where his hands hit the ground in front of the ball only for fraction of a second, and then he goes for the ball. Once your hands hit the ground, you're not supporting your body weight, therefore you've got to be out of there.
I am gutted that Fiji are out. I'm just reading through the team sheet now and how much I love some of these players going forward. And the fact that we want to see...
I look at the names on the back line, which is why I was slightly disappointed with how they played. But I'm flipping that around and telling myself that's because England did really well defensively, which I think they did. But look at the names. I just thought, again, it's 9-10, isn't it? Their 9 did not have a good game.
Lamar.
And Caleb Muntz isn't there. And Batiti scored a good try, didn't he? Or
he did.
He got.
I think this boy's a left winger usually.
Yeah,
is he?
But everyone outside of the halfbacks is like dynamite.
Yes.
But they just. But I was really disappointed with how little we saw from them. But I think that's because the halfbacks. If you put a good international halfbacks in that Fiji team, they'd be a proper handful.
Although Batiti threw an outrageous offload, it went forward though. But if it hadn't gone forward, it was a thing of beauty. I can't remember what he did, but it went out the back door, and either someone dropped it or it went forward. I thought, bloody hell! If that goes to hand, that's like one of the moments of the World Cup. So, but not seeing not seeing Josh Tuasova again this World Cup is heartbreaking. I don't like that. Yeah. I also love watching the English team get manhandled. Particularly, Manu was quite good today. Manu wasn't his worst version. Yeah, he was reasonable.
Manu was good. Marchant was good.
But I do love watching not being able to stop Tuasova.
Well, if you like England getting manhandled,
South Africa next.
Wait till next weekend.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to it.
That was the other thing that Maro did poorly. The second Fiji try, the hooker where he burst through.
Yeah.
Maro did a classic your man.
Yeah. Okay, something I really hate. I'm so glad the referee sorted it out. Ellis Genge, right? Ellis Genge is holding a Fijian.
The scrum half.
Yeah, and the Fijian's trying to get him off. And then, like, I hate his cry face anyway. He's got this annoying cry face, right? But then he's holding the scrum half, and then the scrum half slaps him. And do you know when, like, you see, who does this? Like, I guess press journalists do this. Like, as soon as you touch one, they go mental, like, he assaulted me, he assaulted me, he assaulted me. You know, they push, and then someone loses their temper, and then they have this, like, little hysterical, like, flip out. Well, that's exactly what he did to the ref, because apparently Frank Lamorny slapped him. And he's up there crying his little face off, saying that Frank Lamorny slapped him. And he was in the middle of holding the guy, like holding his shirt. I really hate that.
I would love to, in a parallel universe where Owen Farrell slapped a Fijian player in the same way, I would love to listen to the podcast of you castigating Owen Farrell for doing it. I don't mind that it was just like crack on play.
Owen Farrell, that's another one. Owen Farrell, when the ref had made his decision, like that silly rice smile and that shake of the head. England are awful at this. Like, they really do whinge a lot to the ref. And so does South Africans, by the way. South Africans were bad at it today.
It didn't lose.
There was a lot of it tonight. But a lot of it from both teams.
Yeah.
The Faf de Klerk, where he's got a nice clean sight of about 5 different players and deliberately passes. It's directly into the French player on the ground.
We actually said at the time that I hope they lose the game.
Yeah, that is the kind of thing. And
hate it.
They've got, like, Faf did that when South Africa have got front foot ruck ball inside, deep inside France 22.
Yeah.
And he does a stupid thing like that to try and win a cheap penalty. I thought Ben O'Keefe handled that really, really well. It's like, nope. If you choose to pass into him, the consequence of you passing into a guy who's lying on the floor are entirely up to you.
Yeah, so Owen Farrell's listening to a decision. I think it's for a high tackle, actually. There was a yellow card for a high tackle or something. And it wasn't a red, and Owen Farrell's shaking his head.
Oh, yeah, the Hibosi.
Yeah, something like that.
One.
I thought, Jesus. Just you're there to listen to the information the ref has given you. Dan Bigger was awful.
I mean, Dan Bigger, he likes him more than anyone.
Dan Bigger, who I love, by the way, he's on the try line, and they're defending, and you can hear him shouting, "He's holding on! He's holding on! He's holding on! He's holding on!" He's right in the ref's ear. Benambi did it too.
They all do it. They all do it.
Did you hear that?
They'll do what they're allowed. They'll do whatever they're allowed to get away with. It's down to the referees.
Advantage.
So the least of that happened. The least out of the 4 quarterfinals that happened. The least amount of times Ireland, New Zealand.
Yeah,
because Wayne Barnes was the referee.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, Benambi, right at the bottom of the ruck.
You do whatever you get away with.
Oh yeah, exactly. I don't disagree with it, but I really hate it. The Genge one is so egregious, though. The Genge is like such a cowardly one. It's just like
the penalty actually came up for that as dissent.
Yeah, it did. We loved it.
Which is
rightly so.
Yeah, I would be happy for more penalties for dissent.
Yeah, that's how you stop them doing it, because it was a knock on, wasn't it? And then it went full penalty because Genge's been an idiot. Thank you.
Take it.
God.
So England win. The final game we just kind of touched on there. Oh, go on.
I've got one for you.
No. Yeah, go on.
Marcus Smith. Is this going to happen again? Can it happen again? Is there anything of Marcus Smith to play again?
They can scrape him up and tape it back together. I don't think so. Now, we have spoken about Freddie Stewart and how he's playing before. I think that's only part of the equation. I think the other half of the equation is a situational one. Partly because Fiji don't kick as much as other teams.
Correct. And
partly, I think, to try and make Fiji kick more than they would traditionally kick. Because I think it's quite an astute thing to say, if Fiji see a non-fullback at fullback, they might want to kick more, which means they're running less.
The kicking stats all for this game?
Fiji kicked the ball 20 times.
That's not low.
That's pretty low. So England 30. So it might not be low for Fiji actually. The France New Zealand game at the start of the tournament was 40 apiece, which is the higher end
Yep.
20 is the lower end, but it might be more than Fiji in other games, actually.
Well, Fiji against Fiji against Australia, in my mind, were kicking an awful lot. Like far more so than I would expect them, because I don't think they're the team that a lot of people say they are.
Well, they're not like. There's a lot of cliches in rugby, like who knows what French term is going to turn up,
and then they're all annoyingly right.
This time, yeah, this tournament maybe has proved them wrong. Or Argentina have got a fantastic scrum, haven't they? Not as much as they used to. Things like that. Fiji, the Fijian flair thing is not untrue, but people overlook just how good their set piece is these days and how big and physical their pack is.
Yeah. So Marcus Smith at 15, you don't think it'll happen again?
No, I'm not saying happen again. I don't think it'll happen against South Africa.
So, yeah, I think it was very much situational. I think the time when it will happen against South Africa is if England are down, and this is what I've said all tournament, if England are down by 7 points with 10, 15 minutes to go, you might see it again.
Yeah.
You will not see it starting unless Freddie Stewart is injured.
With the intention of it being there to open up England's attack, do you think it worked?
First half it did okay. Second half, no. But again, to me, that was more a change in strategy. They were kind of moving away from that anyway.
It's such a big ask. I mean, Marcus Smith has not played fullback ever, I don't think, for Harlequins.
He never started. But I don't think it's that big an ask. Like, I was looking at it and frequently... So Marcus Smith frequently kick returns. Like, in this game, frequently the two players in the deep for England receiving and returning the kick were Alex Mitchell and Owen Farrell. Like, it's not that big a... I really don't think it's that big a thing until
I agree.
You get a team that start trying to pepper you with spiral bombs, something like that, which Fiji were unlikely to do. And if Fiji did, that's probably a benefit for England because it means they're going away from there.
So I don't actually think it's the high ball stuff which should be of concern, because a lot of the high ball stuff is actually targeted at wingers. The contested kicks are at the extremities. Where I think it's a concern, and where he did really well, actually, to be fair to him, is that last man tackling. Now, I say really well. He got absolutely bounced a few times, but I can't imagine Freddie Stewart doing much better, to be honest.
He bounced him, but he was enough of a road hump to stop
exactly.
Randrandra. And how often do you see a total clean break, fullback last man, and it doesn't happen that often?
No, but it's kind of like a goalkeeper. Like, it has to be stopped. Like, it only needs to happen once. We had 2 games.
Yeah,
which by a score, these things matter.
Yeah, but then how many? But then we talked about this many times. Freddie Stewart defence is not Freddie Stewart's strong suit.
This is exactly the point I'm making. I don't think Freddie Stewart would have done any better than Marcus Smith. I think Marcus Smith, the road hump thing is exactly right. That's what he had to do. And after he'd got absolutely battered, I think Tuasova ran him over, like big time ran him over. And then when Radrandra's through and he's just hunting for contact, that is terrifying. And he still did it.
Well, the one advantage with Semi, he does seem to just go for the contact. When he's got one-on-one with a 15, he's just going for the contact.
Because he's a great winger.
Fiji kicking stats in their previous games. So it was 20 this week against England. They kicked 21 times against Georgia, so almost identical. 24 times against Australia, and 17 times against Wales. So this is like in the middle of where Fiji. So they've actually not changed their previous strategy. It would seem
their kicking was bad when they did kick, so I can understand why they don't do it very much.
Worst kick.
At least they need more. They need more practice at it.
Yeah, worst kick of the weekend. Jalibert's
amazing
penalty touch finder.
But he had 2 really bad kicks. One of them he got away with, though. Do you know when he went for, I think, a crossfield kick, and it just slices off his boot, and it looks like a grubber kick. And he got charged down, so no one really knew what happened.
He meant it.
Yeah,
that's what he'll say. The second one, that crossfield kick, not crossfield touch finder. Jalibert actually just jumped into that. I thought he did some incredible things. Some of his running and stepping,
lovely player,
was amazing. Two bad kicks, and Etzebeth targeted him for his try, and just carried him over the line.
Just another player to mention for that game, not player, person. It wasn't Ben O'Keefe.
Ben O'Keefe.
I thought he was awesome.
I thought I think the referee.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I thought the same thing, but I've seen a lot of negative comments about him. But I agree with you, JB, for what it's worth.
Yeah. I've seen negative comments about referees all weekend. I thought all referees will make mistakes. Overall, I thought the standard of refereeing was excellent. Although I will note that I thought they were far more liberal than they have been throughout the rest of the tournament, which I think for all of us, we are absolutely fine with.
Yep.
Like, take the Nick Tompkins headshot in the ruck as an example and compare it to the clear-out that got an Italian try disallowed and a yellow card for an Italian prop.
Yeah.
I thought they were very, very similar scenarios. One was a yellow card and a disallowed try. One was crack on, lads.
Yeah.
And I thought if I was going to pick which of those two directions I want the game to go, it's this weekend, absolutely. But it is a bit weird to like rip up the precedent that you've set for the previous 5 weeks of rugby in the knockout stages. I'm not saying it's wrong. Yeah. I'm for it.
I don't know how you measure it, right? Because there'll be people on Twitter in particular, nerds. And maybe I'd fall into this category if I actually had a dog in the fight. Maybe if it was like a team I cared about. I might be very pernickety, like, they didn't pick up on that, that is the law, this is how it should be enforced. But the ultimate way you judge is the game good is, did you enjoy it? Did it flow? Did you enjoy it? And if it did, so I tell you one of the Ben O'Keefe moments which I thought was really good. The easiest call in the world is to give Etzebeth a yellow card or a penalty for tapping the ball down. Because it's just such an obvious, like, immediately I thought, oh God, yellow card.
Yeah.
To not give anything and then to be right about it.
Yeah.
Because felt like a yellow card.
Yeah.
He was right.
There was a couple of let
Great
the boys
call
play
up.
moments over the weekend, wasn't there? There was that one, and then there was the Argentina Wales, because we were coming on to that game a little bit. That like not giving anything for when Nick Tompkins scored for an HIA. Now I know there's quite a lot of Wales fans quite upset about that. I based on what we've seen, when you think back to where we were calibrated at the start of the World Cup, where Tom Curry got a red card.
Yeah, exactly.
It does fit. It does feel like a different system now. But I like where we're at now, because there's some recognition that accidents do happen, and that's okay. And actually, if it's about changing behaviour, well,
it's already
the
been
Argentinian
done.
player was bent 90 degrees at the waist and was doing a regulation clear out, and Nick Tompkins was falling and he hit his head. And sometimes head contact will happen because it's rugby union.
Yeah, an accident. Yes. It's hard to change the behaviour of an accident.
Yeah. Yes.
Unless you're just saying, well, no, don't go for a clear out.
Someone's been saying this for years.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you look at these games, right? No one's life expectancy has gone up after this weekend. Like, no one's chances of dementia have gone up. Have gone down after this week's games, because that is the nature of the game. And there were no knockouts. You know, there are a few HIAs, but even the guys without HIAs would have had some serious TBIs this week, because that is the game, and we all know what we signed up for. That is the game. Get on with it. Talking of getting on with it, before we go into Wales, Argentina, I went networking, Beardmore & Co, Independent Financial Advisors, Friday morning. Someone turned around to me, big hand, shook my hand, said, "Hi, I'm Adrian. Who was it?"
I know the answer to this already.
Same.
So I can't pretend like I
Oh, I've already told...
you told both of us.
Oh, I met Adrian Morley.
That's awesome.
Absolute legend of the
What
rugby
warrior?
league, the cross-code. Yeah, Morley.
I was like, this is a big deal. This is a massive deal for me. Adrian Morley is right here. So, good old chat. He's in construction recruitment now.
Is he?
He is. Do you need any recruiting people?
Not right now.
No.
No, I'd always be keen for a chat with Adrian Morley, though.
I'll sort it out for you. I've got his card upstairs. Big mates now. Big mates.
Big slice as well.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He looks like he still trains.
Yeah, I imagine he does.
Those rugby league guys are just... I've met a load of rugby union lads. Load of them. And they're very impressive, like physically impressive. There's something innately scary about ex-rugby league players, though. I can't really put my finger on it. They're different.
They are, so they're different, and the amount of punishment they put their bodies through. Because it's... So I remember, I always go back to this, when Sam Burgess moved, all roads lead to Sam Burgess, of course, but when he moved to Bath in England, rugby union, they were talking about his involvements as either a 6 or a 12, 13, I guess, where he ended up playing some of his rugby.
Yeah.
But you'd be talking about, like, maybe in a big game, maybe 8 to 12 carries, 8 to 12 tackles.
Yeah.
And in rugby league, he'd be doing like more than double that on both counts. On
interventions are through the roof.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you're not hitting any rucks in rugby league, but it's still like way more. And some of these, I've just got Adrian Moore. Do you know how many league games of rugby or league and cup games, so club games of rugby, Adrian Morley played in his
400.
career? 400.
So let's say, I was going to say, like 25 a year for, let's say, 15 years.
Yeah.
100. Yeah, so 350.
Yeah. 497.
What?
As well. So, including...
Jesus Christ.
Within that, 149 for Leeds Rhinos, 114 for Sydney Roosters.
Jesus.
Which that's quite a high standard.
It's pretty high.
And then 173 for Warrington Wolves, as well as 53 internationals as well.
Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. I always feel with these rugby league boys, it's meeting one, it's kind of like hanging out with a pet tiger. Like, for the most part, you're going to be okay, but it only needs to not be okay once.
Yeah. Is your pet tiger well fed today?
Yeah. They're always slightly on the edge.
You might be on the menu.
Yeah. Wow, that is a hell of a CV.
Incredible.
And now,
Was there any more to the Adrian Morley thing, or you just say that you met him? I'm not knocking it. I love hearing about it, but I'm just before we just checking there wasn't anything more to the Adrian Morley. It was just that you met him and chewed his ear off.
Yeah, that was basically
nice.
No, you're his best mate.
I'm his absolute best mate now.
Is he going to come down crossfitting with you?
I'd say so.
Absolutely.
We're basically inseparable.
I'll just give you a little interlude then, a little France update. Well, firstly, actually, that Scottish fan that I recorded last week at the Stade de France,
yes.
went viral because someone else plucked the video and put it on their own channels. It was on Have I Got News For You on Friday night.
I know, I saw it.
And what I was so in just before Ireland New Zealand was about to start, I was so pumped. I was so excited. I'd seen the Wales Argentina game. I'd made it into the middle of Marseille. I was by the little temple bar, the Irish bar in the middle of Marseille, right by the port. I was buzzing, and then I got this little notification saying you've had a copyright strike.
What?
On your YouTube channel because I'm going to find out who this is. I don't know what, but apparently I've spoken to some people, and it's like this is quite common. Someone has pretended they own that video of the Scottish fan.
Oh my
have
God.
licensed it, and then have copyright struck me, the person who did it and uploaded it.
That is a joke.
Someone out there is basically the Ellis Genge of copyright banter.
Oh dear!
I was livid. So I'm getting these copyright strikes, and then like there's only so many times you can do things not on terms of service on YouTube before they just knock your account down. So I've disputed
our
it,
account,
but it's just like not only
be careful with it.
Not only did someone rip my video, put that content somewhere else, get millions of views that I get no credit for. But yeah, that I'm actually having people telling me off, saying you can't have that video up there. That belongs to someone else.
That really is a
The
kick.
world just isn't fair, is it, Tim?
Absolutely livid.
That it really is a kick in the teeth. That the second part of that.
Shocking. There was something else I can't. I've forgotten.
It was going to be a happy story.
Oh yeah, and no. So I spent some time in Marseille with. I had a wonderful night last night. A real big night with the friend of the pod and EggChaser North Dorset Sevens champion Dave McDonald.
Oh, the boy.
D-Mac, good lad.
D-Mac and Ed, who's a fantastic lad, and they put me up in their Airbnb. Thank you for that. Anyway, so we had what was I saying? What was the point of this?
Update from France.
What was I? No.
Party drugs. You want to tell us about party drugs?
Oh, and I also saw Hugo again.
Very nice.
Good lad.
Oh my god, my brain! Can you tell I had a big night last night? I can't remember what I was about to say.
And it's also nearly 12:30 in France as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm on the radio early in the morning. Oh, it'll come to me. I had a big night out in Marseille, and something happened.
And copyright theft happened.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't that. Oh, I can't remember now. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
Obviously, it wasn't important.
If it comes back to you, just...
Anyway, sorry.
Well, if it does,
I had a great night. Lots of beers and good fun.
Excellent.
I love France, and now everything moves to Paris, where it's freezing cold apparently. So.
Yes, that makes sense. So, Wales, Argentina.
Wales.
Yeah.
A little bit
10-0 up, bossing things.
A little bit upset about this one. I've got to say, I when they were winning, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm getting a bit behind this team. I do quite like them after all that. And then for them to lose it the way they did. Do you know, some people might whinge about how Wales lost, refereeing decisions and so on and so forth. One man can actually take some actual blame for this, and that is Josh Adams and his stupidity to give away what I think was an absolutely vital 3 points.
It was. Just the kind of no arm.
What was he thinking?
Late hit, but totally unnecessary.
Yeah,
totally. It was just a
stick.
It was just a cheap shot. Yeah. I've said this for a long time. Very happy. Where players are brain dead. Like, so happy to see a penalty go against them.
And
it's so unnecessary.
Was that the 10-9? Was that to make it 10-9 or something? It felt important to me because I think it's just before the half.
Was that the one just before the half time?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And all of a sudden,
I think you're right.
Wales not in control.
Yes.
And it's because of that stupid decision.
That was the one to make it 10-9.
Idiots.
From being 10, yes.
I think just to, I think I've already drawn the parallel earlier in the podcast, but when you draw the parallel with South Africa and Wales, and also actually the Wales and Argentina, just the two teams that were on show that day, the importance of the team that you finish with, because I remember when I saw the team announced, I was like, what happens if something happens to Liam Williams? And then you're like, okay, we'll probably have to put Lewis Rees-Summit to fullback. He's not totally sure about that. And then it's like, what happens if a centre goes down? Probably have to put Josh Adams in or move Dan Bigger out one. And it's just, the two things you did not want to happen happened in that game. And Dan Bigger he definitely wasn't 100%. His arm wasn't right. He wasn't passing fluidly. You could see when he was kicking, he's not mechanically, it wasn't great. So he was sort of patched up already. And then, but for him and Liam Williams to go off and Sam Costello to come on, it's just, they just didn't have the bench.
So
they did not have the bench.
Well, that's because these players are literally all the players that Wales have.
I totally agree. There's no other options.
Well,
there's no other options.
The only option is to roll out the mummified corpses of Justin Tipperick and Alan Wynne-Jones onto the pitch.
This is quite a nice... The Welsh story is quite a nice story, I think, because they have fought valiantly. I think, as a team, they've done themselves proud. They're not a good team. I said this. I mean, they're a good bunch of blokes. They're not great individuals. Like, they're a good bunch as a team. They work hard together. The pack is lacking. Like, the backs have got some nice names, and then you just realise when you look at the bench, like, this is it. That's it. There's no one else in all of Wales.
What I will say is they're unbelievably fit and their attitude is outstanding.
Yeah.
The ability for Wales to get on their feet and in the defensive line is incredible.
How hard
They're
they
amazing
work.
at it.
And that's what you got to like about them. It just shows that the team dynamic in rugby is absolutely essential. And I think they've done well.
And they have got some like, as much as we talk about the old guard in this game and the old guard who've gone already, there is some talent there. It's whether it's enough. Like that back row, Morgan, Rafael, Wainwright, they're all young.
Yeah.
Tashunza and Daffy Jenkins, they're young and talented. Rio Dyer looks good when he gets an opportunity going forward. Tompkins is still in his prime. So they've got... It's not all... Like, Wales are in a significantly worse place than some teams, but it's not all bad. It's not as bad as it could be.
This is kind of like when Iceland started winning football games. The fact they only had these players kind of worked in their favour because they had to play together all the time. But in what world would you pick a back row which is like 5'10", 6'2", 6 foot? I mean, we're talking plumbers and scaffolders here.
Yeah, but Morgan, he's a hell of a... Is he a spark?
And just when you think you've seen everything Jack Morgan can do, he goes and does some ridiculous footwork, as he did in this game. He had an unbelievable step and gas.
Yeah.
He stepped like a winger.
Yeah. He's
a hell of a player.
He's good. He is good. The front row's not good enough. Second row probably isn't good enough. They've done remarkably well to get as far. They did bloody well to beat Fiji, frankly.
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's a good point.
They were favourites coming into this, and I mean, my calls were all over the shop. I was thinking it'd be a Northern Hemisphere. I was thinking we're possibly going to see a Northern Hemisphere whitewash. But so what do I know? But the Wales one, that was the one I most confidently called, and I think that was the case with many people. They seemed like, and I think they are a legit good rugby team. So just to flip it over, I think you've got to credit Argentina. Kremer was outstanding. Santi Carreras had a really good game at fly half.
Yeah, agreed.
And what I found interesting, and I noticed this with New Zealand doing this to Ireland as well. I reckon this must be by design, and in terms of tactics and the way the game evolves, Argentina, like it looked like they were getting carved up. Luis Rees-Zammit had space and was an overlap on the edge the first 4 times he got the ball. And then he sort of butchered it. He wasn't very good at kicking with it. Anyway, that's by the by. The point is, I was like, they're carving him up. But and it also happened later that day, last night, with New Zealand defended quite narrow and gave Ireland the outside. I think that might be what teams are doing now. We trust ourselves to be able to slide and cover if they get the outside, but we're not going to have anyone go through the middle of us.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happens. I mean, it's like the oldest... not the oldest saying, but like if you're gonna concede, you concede out wide.
Yeah.
That's just how you played club rugby for years and years. So it would make sense. You double up in the middle and you let people go wide, and if they can do it, well, sort that out later.
Yeah, but you buy yourself time, because unless you can do either pinpoint pass to a man going on at pace or a pinpoint crossfield kick, you're always going to, like, the time it takes the ball to travel out there buys you a few seconds to scramble.
Yeah. So when Rio Dyer makes that break, and Thomas Williams is it, and he gives it to Rees-Zammit, you think, this is the best finisher in the world. Like, he's right up there, and for him not to get in, wasn't their day, was it? Was not their day.
Hell of a tackle coming across there.
Oh, that was a hell of a tackle.
Yes, because he has to get, I mean, the comms said it beautifully, but he has to get his whole body in the way.
Yeah.
It means a really tough tackle, that.
Yeah. It was a great tackle.
Can I just say that Argentinian fans are amazing.
I bet they are.
So
they are brilliant.
We came across them in Tokyo, England, Argentina. They were fantastic.
I don't remember any of that.
We might have had 1 or 2 Lemon Strong Zeros on that day.
Like, I'll put it this way: they managed to like pogo during their own national anthem.
Pogo?
It's like they're all jumping up and down. You look around and you just see blue and white just bouncing everywhere you look during the national anthem. They are absolutely mad for it. It's just awesome.
So Argentina being in the semis, I mean, they're not going to be favourites to win the game. but they're in a bloody good position because they're going to know their opposition very well. They played them before. They've beaten the All Blacks twice now.
Yeah, and
once from a hotel room.
Yes, and I think both of these teams, their weakest aspect is their front row, which means they match up quite nicely against one another.
Yeah, I would not be shocked to see them make a final.
I would. It's not out of the question.
Surprised, not shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked would be maybe putting it too strongly, but yeah, surprised.
Yes.
I've just... Mind you, the performance as Wales wasn't... How do I feel about it? It was good, but it was... If you look at the quarters, there is a substantial difference in quality between two of the games and this game and the England game.
100%.
And none of the four teams that played in the worst of the two quarterfinals, I don't think any of them played well enough to make me think, yeah, okay, maybe there'll be a challenge. Argentina might be the best of the rest. I don't know.
It's... I mean, I was watching that England game thinking... even when England were playing well in the first half, whoever they played, because this was before the France-South Africa game, it doesn't matter. France or South Africa are going to put 30 points on England.
Yeah, they are.
And there's nothing that I've seen today that makes me change my mind.
The only thing that might come into play is it's just a one-off game. Just things happen.
And the pressure, yeah. But it's the kind of thing that if you replayed it 100 times, I think 90 of those times, South Africa now put 30 points on England. I think 10 of those times it gets a bit closer and a bit more interesting. Maybe 2 or 3 of those times it gets close enough for England to actually win it.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that. So it's unlikely.
Argentina, New Zealand will be closer than South Africa, England.
Probably.
Tim?
But maybe because Argentina haven't looked...
Yes, I think...
They've not looked that great, though.
They've not.
No, they haven't. They were much better, and that was they had a little bit more structure and game plan. So I was more impressed. But I still, these are mismatches. Well, no, not mismatches. That's unfair. You've got heavy favourites for each of these games. England just need to make it really ugly and drag South Africa as much as they can into a terrible game. It's their only hope, which is why I think we will see Stewart back at fullback.
Yeah.
And
damning with faint praise. That.
And I think
as
we will,
bad as possible. Yeah. Get me Stewart on the phone.
No, because they're going to try and draw South Africa into a kicking battle. They're going to slow it down. Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the best idea against South Africa.
No,
though.
I'm not either. I'm like,
but I think if you let the game go loose, they're just going to shred England.
You are right. Like playing fast and high tempo, I'm not sure I want to do that if I'm England. I don't want to get into an arm wrestle.
Both ways.
Yeah, this team can. They really can.
I will say about Argentina, back row's cool.
Yeah.
The centres are dynamite. I love Chocobaras, and
he had to go off quite early. Sinti has actually.
Sinti is the other guy.
I was unsure about him, but I can see why Checker is persisting with him now.
Because he's a big boy.
And Maroney coming off the bench is very nice as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope Chocobaras is all right for the semi. I remembered, by the way, what I was going to say about night out with Dave and Ed.
Okay,
DMAC.
So, did you know how they got to Marseille? They were caught up in the air traffic control, the air traffic control strike. Such that
I've not watched the video. Go on.
No, they were meant to have a connecting flight, and loads of Wales fans and England fans were in this situation. So they were meant to fly via Munich. The Munich flight got changed to Frankfurt because of these air traffic control strikes. Then when they got to Frankfurt, they were told, "Oh, actually, your flight to Marseille has been cancelled. We'll put you on standby for a flight to Nice tomorrow morning. Are there any seats on that plane? No, you're on standby." So basically, so they decided to hire a car and drive 1,000 miles from Frankfurt to Marseille.
Oh God!
With 3 other Welsh fans that they met who just happened to be in the same situation, and the 5 of them drove. Well, Dave Mack drove, but they were all in one little in a VW Passat. The 5 of them driving through the night to get to Marseille to make sure they were there. They were great crack. It was awesome. But I made a video, as Phil just mentioned. You haven't watched the video. I made a video for our YouTube channel, and then what do you know? Basically, I've done the production work for another grassroots podcast who are having them on their podcast to tell them about this amazing story that the producers found. So I'm glad they're getting a bit of airtime.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I quite like doing the work for the grassroots podcasters as well. It's nice I can give something back.
100%.
It is nice. It is nice. And that's the thing about being podcasters ourselves. We're giving back all the time. So podcast less fortunate than ourselves.
So a grassroots podcast that's staying at the Sofitel right in the middle of Marseille rather than the camper van on the outskirts like me. But that's fine. It's fine. I'm quite happy. I'll keep coming up with the content, and other people can keep.
Exactly right.
It's fine by me.
You keep going, Tim. You're doing a great job. Right. Do you want to do predictions, or should we save that for another podcast? I'm tired.
I think we save it for another podcast.
Do another pod.
But
we might need to talk about the Premiership. We might need to talk about the RFU again. We're getting behind on those things. We might need to talk about the predictions for next week. We've got all sorts going on.
Yeah, let's save it for another pod. Let's save it for another day because it's nearly midnight as well.
God.
And I'm on a train in the morning.
God, I love podcasting. Love podcasting. Can't get enough of it.
Bloody love rugby. I really love rugby.
What a weekend!
Right,
and the talk about its impending demise might be a little premature. JB, you think after this weekend's rugby?
No, certainly not, mate. We are we're sort of partying whilst Rome burns. Yeah, this is it. This is the last throw of the dice. Enjoy it.
Oh, mate, I'm happy to be here as it's going down. Then, if that's the case, if this weekend's got anything,
yeah,
like
we're basically ballroom dancing on the Titanic.
Bring it on.
Right, so follow Tim on YouTube, download the podcast. Well, you already have downloaded the podcast, so subscribe to the podcast. Contact us.
Follow JB in very small shorts on Instagram.
Well, actually, they're quite long. They're very tight, but they're quite long. I've got a few followers on Instagram this week. I don't know if they're horrified or what really. They're certainly not getting the content that they expected.
Well, if they were expecting extremely tight lycra shorts, and that's why they've added it. Yeah. They'll be very happy with the channel.
If you like muscle ups, yep, it's all there. Right, yep. So do that, and we'll see you probably tomorrow or midweek with some more podcasts. So from me, Tim, and Phil, let the boys play.
Beautiful.
Top work.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the 4-day super sale, October 13th through the 16th, and get 40% off paints and stains with prices starting at $26.69. That means 40% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, get 40% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.